Just waiting on Ileana to come back, but I'll just see if I can reach around here and show you my partner in crime today. This is JJ, my friend Anna's cat, who's just sunning it up.
Oh, how cute. So gorgeous.
He did a bypass through the screen earlier, Erin had commented. He's like, oh, there's the little cat going on over there. Because he tends to, every time I've been here and like we're on a webinar, like he tends to just pop up and say, oh, hello, I'm a participant in this as well. He loves the energy. So he's just, you know, particularly the feminine energy, but the whole thing, he's just been sitting there going.
Oh, so funny. Yeah, my cat loves to do that. He'll come between me and the computer.
Totally. Particularly at the end of the day, this one's really good at that. I'm just going, no, I think it's close of business now. I think it's time for you to love me senseless. I've waited long enough.
Yeah, give me attention.
Something to be learned from cats in this respect when it comes to receiving, isn't it?
Oh, totally. I want to be a cat.
Totally. Totally. All right. I think we're all back. So tell me, if I bring up this, if I open the workbook and I put it on screen share and we sort of go, is it more helpful for me to do that and then we can sort of talk through it? Or would you like to have a copy open on yours and I open my PowerPoint presentation and just talk through each bit? What does everyone feel would be more beneficial for you?
I'd love to have something that you're putting up for us to look at, because
yep,
whether it's the PowerPoint or whether it's the worksheet, because then I'd love to focus on what you're saying instead of like flicking between what you're saying, what you're putting up, and the worksheet, which I don't have.
Totally. All right.
Me.
Cool. Okay, let's do screen share.
Now we've got our vibration up. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I want it just to be just on you.
Cool. Alrighty. Now, so this is it. This is our little workbook for today. I was posting about this on Facebook, this comment this week about why it's important. So I just suggested that we reread through that. But yeah, I was just sort of saying that what sort of prompted this as well is, I mean, obviously my journey in finding speakers to speak on these, which isn't hard because everybody wants to speak on it. And then it's kind of a matter of discriminating who's ready and how do we communicate what you're going to do once you've got a talk ready. How do we communicate what that's about and why somebody who is potentially going to come to this event, for example, would want to come to it. This is the same challenge that we all have as entrepreneurs in trying to work it all out. How do we communicate? Like why this? Why should somebody come and listen to this talk? Why should they come and listen to you? And why is it of benefit to them? And why is it of benefit now more than ever? Like, can they afford to wait another year? What's going to happen if they wait another year? Versus what are the benefits of the doing this immediately and the ultimate outcome of doing this immediately? For me to be able to, or for you to be able to with any of your events, be able to effectively explain to your clients those factors and why it's of benefit for them to be there in that part of you that knows that it's there for your purposes, there to show up as your wisdom and be you, but the countermeasure of the counterbalance to that is they've put out their prayer wanting your support, and then you're trying to connect those two dots together. The questions that it helps to be able to answer, and these are the ones that I'll often ask the speakers when they come and want to present, is, so what's the talk about? Who's it for? Why should someone come to it? What problems is it solving for them? What benefits will they get out of attending? And why is it important that they come now of all times? So those are the really important things. just go on from there. I've given you a little checklist in here as well, because there's about 10 activities total in here. So there's just a checklist at the top just for you to be able to just, if you like to have that feeling of accomplishment of ticking off a checklist as you go, that's there. This was the section that I just popped in for, following on from Matt and Prasanna's wisdom today and the downloads that you've got out of those. What is your renewed vision right now? What are you feeling most inspired and passionate about? Who do you feel most inspired to help? So this page you can use to basically capture any thoughts that you've had about this throughout the morning so far. So do feel free to, if you can get in on, if you've got the version of Adobe that you can get in and do it without printing it, feel free to just, pop in there live while we're doing it if you like. Some of these things we can kind of do live right now. Or yeah, feel free to print it out later or write wherever you need to as well. Worksheet number 2. This is like the little template. This is sort of based on loosely on the ones I've been taught. I feel it's only fair to give credit to both Marcus Bird for the creation of the message matrix, which him and Andy Ramsey used at Wellness Leadership Academy together, which also had its inspirations and origins in part in the positioning matrix, which Matt Church and the partners at Thought Leaders Global also, that was one of their tools as well. And Marcus was originally a partner with them. So there is a loose inspiration in, and obviously because I was trained in Marcus's approach and with that, in that sphere of the thought leaders' way of seeing things, there's a little bit of that influences my work in this respect. So I feel like that's my wanting to acknowledge that's influenced a little bit of this, but it's not directly what they do at the same time. So there's me in this as well. So yeah. So this page is like then the version that you can use to, whether it's when you're at the start of a networking event or whether you're formulating just a quick summary for like Facebook groups or LinkedIn or anything like that. This is basically like your summary format that you're following and that I follow anytime you hear me do an intro. I'm basically following this format, which puts, you say who you are, you say, so what's the professional title that, rather than, you can come up with like some fancy, beautiful thing that's authentic for you in terms of a very unique title, but in terms of mainstream everyday business as well, people also need to understand what you are that they can identify with. So your professional title in this respect, this is why I use public speaking coach and mentor, because everybody knows what that is, right? Whereas if I talked more into the unique essence of what I do, that's also cool, but that also means they've got to ask a question, or what's she doing, what's she about? So it's good to have those balance of both terms, of something that really sums up your uniqueness. Like Prasanna's got creatrix as one of her words. Like that's very her. And also to have that balance of, what does the everyday business world, working world and world at large need us to communicate that as, in terms of words like naturopath or coach or counselor or therapist or consultant or any of those. So this can be just as helpful for, Vic or anyone in the workplace, as well as from entrepreneurial perspective. So who you are, what your professional title is, that they'd recognize who you help. I've given you 2 markets to work with here, because sometimes it might be that you're working with, for example, I say in mine, entrepreneurs and organizational leaders within my intro. So I put in my little format 2 in case you feel like, you've got 2 markets that you work with on the same thing. But it could just be one. Essentially, who you are, who you help with, what problem or problems are you helping them resolve, and what up to 3 benefits, just to summarize sort of the overall benefit of what they're going to get out of working with you. What typically do what typically do you help people achieve through your work and through your role? So you help them achieve these top 3 benefits, and then what's the overall outcome? So for example, this one for me is, that's when I say, so I help service-based entrepreneurs and organizational leaders to share their message with greater confidence, clarity, and authentic charisma. That's like 3 benefits in there. So as they can overall outcome, be more successful in making a difference in the world and creating successful businesses and lives that they love, is like your overall outcome. So that's just a template for you to always use in describing that in a way that, again, gets their attention of going, oh yeah, that's really clear, I get it, what I'm going to get out of this, and understanding why they should do it. Now moving on to these next couple of ones, what would you say that your target market's biggest problems and challenges are right now? You may have some new reflections on this after today if you've clarified a little bit more who you want to work with, or who your workplace does work with already. Then this is your section to just capture your knowledge around those things, so as it's crystallizing into a short conceptual form for you. What would you say that the target market's biggest problems and challenges are right now? What do they tell you that their problems are when they first contact you? Yeah, because when they reach out to you, or there's a slight difference here between what they will say that their problem is and what you will understand as the professional is really going on for them. And so there's often a distinction between those two. So this just allows us to sort of separate what's your understanding, what's their understanding. And then in terms of the things that are secretly worrying them that they're maybe not ready to talk about yet, particularly for those of you who are therapists, what are they not saying that is really keeping them awake at night? That's often the underlying reason of why they're really motivated to do something. Like, for example, I remember one of my marketing colleagues at one point, they have an amazing advertising agency, and they were talking about a gluten-free cake mix at one point. They were trying to work out the advertising campaign for it and work out why people should buy it. So the company thought that because it's gluten-free, what they actually found out when they worked with a lot of the parents who might be the target market for that product was that the real motivation underlying underlying why they would buy this was actually thinking about the moments where they see their kids go to birthday parties and intimate moments, and the kid can't participate because they can't eat a cake with wheat flour in it, for example. And then there's this social isolation thing. They're on the outside, it's us versus them. And that's the thing that is really worrying the parent, that's kind of an underlying thing of for them psychologically, in addition to the child needing to be healthy, which is obviously going to be key. There's also that concern in their head for their child that's really motivating that buying decision. So understanding those things, for example, also helps us be able to write really the ads or the copy that you see on Facebook or LinkedIn sometimes, where it's like, man, you are so in my head right now. How did you know? That's exactly what my life is like.
Yeah.
Like, understanding this question 3 is sort of how you start to get into that zone. Is exploring those deeper things, which this comes with time and conversations as well, getting to the bottom of really is. This comes once you've had more sessions with people and lots more conversations, that they get comfortable with you, and then they share the way they would if you were having a glass of wine around a fire, and it gets more intimate, and then they open up a bit more. So I mean, if ever, the thing I would say about all these kind of questions, like, don't ever feel bad if you feel like you're like, oh, I just don't know right now. Like Matt was saying, when we're at the start, when we're at certain stages of the journey with understanding a problem or putting something out there, you don't know what you don't know when you don't know it. And you're allowed to not know versus what you do already know. And sometimes it's about finding ways to reconcile the difference between those, and sometimes we do need to do a little bit more research, and sometimes that only comes with time. There's balancing that with knowing you do know something already that's important, and then sometimes you'll need to do a little bit more research, and that's completely okay. And this kind of question these kind of questions can help with that. Do jump in and let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything you want me to further explain. Peeps as well, feel free to just interrupt. And or I'll try and keep an eye on the comments as well. So their hopes, goals and aspirations. What do you think your target market's main hopes, goals and aspirations are? This is sort of in the same format. What do they tell you that their hopes and goals and aspirations are when they first connected with you? And this, again, like that example I just gave you with the cake mix and marketing it, like what other parties' needs, goals and aspirations do you need to also consider first before you can address your client's own? For example, sometimes this can be when we have a partner involved in a person's buying decision, or there might be a parent involved in a teenager's wanting to do something, and then we have to consider, you know, how is the other person, this can also be, I see this a lot with working with mums as well, right? That when their timing around offerings or when they want to do something will be influenced by the well-being of the child in that moment, which is absolutely completely, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it's just, again, this question's just to help us understand where are those aspects, what are the influences in that respect, so that we can understand. So as again,
I've actually got a question that's just leapt in at me.
Yes.
And when your target market is predominantly struggling in life, and not just their relationships but in life, so financially, and I know that there are high-end clients that are in relationship challenges and that sort of thing, it's defining where to actually find them, because I seem to have no trouble finding the ones that are still in the victimhood and so deeply in there.
Yes.
And I would just absolutely love to work with them, because there is potential there, and there are some that are ready to step out of that.
Yes.
But it's like, for me to start generating some income,
Yes.
and that I really want to be working with people who can and will readily pay me.
Yes. Yeah. I totally hear you. And a friend and I were talking about this exact thing last night. And I feel like Prasanna's energy today and what she's been talking about is such an answer to this, because so much of this is literally just a vibrational shift in you. That's
why I put the call.
Totally.
Been there, done that.
Yes. Because I know, right? And especially right now because of COVID and several other things, I'm about to interview someone later today who she's thriving right now in the midst of this, because she works with people around relationships and sexuality, and her client load is through the roof right now because people are having so many relationship problems. So
I know potential's there, but that's okay. Carry on with your stuff, and
cool. So yes, it is mainly the mindset and the energy shift. It will organically start to shift. Your languaging will resonate with different group of people rather than just those people who are hanging in that zone. Best answer that came through for that right now.
Thank you.
No problem. And again, worksheet 6 is the research task. So what do other experts say about what your clients' known and unknown problems, goals and aspirations are? So if you're reading, as you're reading books or other people's work that is similar to yours but slightly different, this might be just keeping a mindful eye out for yes and what would I add to what they're saying, or yes, but how do I differ in my opinion of what they're thinking about that. This will help inspire a little bit of that line of thinking, and will also give you a bit of clarity around what else might you need to add to yours or change in that respect. It all just deepens your insight, which in turn deepens your clarity and the resonance of, you know, what you're saying. It would close the gap between communication now and the resonance of connecting with the client, going, that's exactly, that relates to me. That makes total sense to me. Make sense? Cool. Worksheet, your products and services. So I put down a little section here. It's got the little things in there, just with sections. So you can play with this a bit. You can make it linear, you can make it non-linear, you can put them however you like as the order works for you. I put about 10 in there. But any given time that we're basically, this is just to explain again, I'm sure most of us are pretty familiar with this, but just it's that little premise of there's a sequence in the offerings of when your client comes from first meeting you and then they're going to come into working with you, what steps are they taking and what process are they going through before they start working with you? And in terms of the offerings that you have, what order do they progress through those? So this one just allows you to then just put that in a visual form in here. That's important for your understanding as well, for when you're explaining what the process will be for them. Beautiful example that relates to this. I was watching, because I'm supporting Royal Australasian College of Physicians at the moment on their supervision and workplace training and assessment programs for specialists and GPs at the moment. I'm working with them on their supervision courses and helping moderate those and watching some of the training videos. And there was this great example the other day of a specialist who was in an endo clinic, I think, endocrinology clinic, and she had an intern, a trainee with her, and he had to break some awkward news about a child's having a lesion on their brain or a potential growth in their brain to the mother of this 3-year-old. And you had this scenario where both the supervisor and the trainee were sitting in and giving this information with the trainee leading it. He was a 20-something guy, and he was trying to sort of explain in an awkward circumstance where they didn't actually know what was going on. He was trying to explain, hey, we need to get your child in to do more tests to essentially biopsy this thing, because while we can see it on a scan, we don't understand what it is. And the tricky part within that was he was feeling uncertain because he didn't know. So his confidence was like knocked a little bit. And then the more his confidence was knocked, the more aggravated and agitated the mother got, because she's like, well, shouldn't you know? Aren't you the doctor? You're supposed to know this. She didn't project that energy at the supervisor who was in the group, who was like, the only difference was she communicated the exact same information then as well as the trainee did, but the difference was she was certain in her sense of, this is the process that we now have to go through. Yes, we're not sure what this is, but in me taking your hand now to educate you and lead you through what we suggest needs to be the process to support you with this and for you to make your choices within that, this is what we suggest that we need to do. How do you feel about that? Whereas the trainee was still in a bit like, oh, I'm feeling uncertain and I don't know what to tell her, and I'm reactive because she's reacting, and then she got more reactive because she could feel his uncertainty. So the point within that is this helps you when you understand your work as a process and the progress of progression. That gives you that confidence then to then take someone by the hand and say, hey, this might typically be the journey, and this is the support I can offer you through that. What would you like to know about that? And does that sound like something that would interest you to participate in? So this helps you create that clarity around your sequence, which is important for them to, again, connect and resonate with it. Any questions? Well, this again, this one, worksheet 8, is a visual representation of basically for any given offering that you're creating. This again sort of comes inspired by, there's many different marketers talk about this same thing. This sort of comes from my mentor's inspiration as well, with slightly different wording, that once you know what it is, that you know what the problem is and you know what the solution is to that, and you've got, for example, for us, say a speaking piece. So there's a speaking presentation which talks about this particular concept and this particular solution in resolving it. That's a message, right? And then for any given message that we have, there's the market that we want to deliver that to, the target market. There could also potentially be other target markets that is also relevant to. And this section allows us to kind of capture our thoughts around that. And then what is the offering that we're going to do, that we are going to use, for example, in this specific example that I was just talking about would be a public speaking presentation. It could be an info event. So, or it could be your one-on-one session, or it could be an online program. So it just again allows you to sort of capture for, you know, anything that you're going to launch right now. Okay, let me just think about those core 3 things for me to be able to communicate it. This again, can you hear me okay right now? Yep, cool. That just allows you to capture that, in short, your thoughts around that. And then this is the summary of the questions that I read you earlier in terms of what I would ask you when you're going to present a speaking piece to me, or what someone else might want to know when they're going to decide if they want to do something of yours. So what is this? Again, this is going through what is your talk or offering about? Who's it for? Why would someone want to come to it? What problems is it solving for them? What key benefits will they get out of attending? And then on this page, like again, just deepening our understanding of, you know, what happens if they don't do something. Not to want to be manipulative in the marketing sense, but just to increase our understanding and their understanding in the same way as that GP that I was just talking about, or the specialist that I was just talking about. If that kid doesn't have something done with this thing in their brain, it could be a brain tumor and it could have consequences, right? This is not about being manipulative. This is just about understanding, like, what are going to be the literal implications if somebody doesn't do something about the problems that they're experiencing. This helps us to be able to capture what is our sense and our understanding of that, to be able to explain to someone. And then why should they do your offering sooner rather than later? So again, this just gives you room for you to explain it. And once you can explain it on paper, then you can more aptly talk about it with your clients in person, right? And then there's just an extra page for you at the end for any additional extra thoughts and wisdom. Now, is there any questions that you have about any of that you want to go through while you've got me live, as opposed to you taking away and having a go at it beyond today?
One thing that's coming up for me is if I'm off target, or you others that are on the call can also throw in your pennies with. I've done these exercises over and over and over and over and over and over the years.
Yes.
And while I would love to go in and do it now, while it would be a waste of time, I don't feel, inside of myself, I don't feel it would be the best use of my time at the moment, because I know in my heart that all of this will just drop in when it's the right thing.
Totally.
And yet for me to sit down and go through this, and that, especially from the head perspective.
Yes. From the masculine part that needs to conceptualize and understand it.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
It just puts me into further and further frustration. So,
and this is what you need for you, like we were talking about earlier, is you then embracing your feminine, and allowing yourself to flow more in, I already get it, right?
Yes, yeah.
And trusting that you do get it.
I know the information is there. I know the gold that needs to be put down on these pages.
Yes.
There, but the struggle and the efforting that I've been doing has been coming from a place of penetration.
Yes.
and it hasn't been working. It hasn't been the right information. So, yep.
Totally.
I give myself permission just to let it be.
And I honor you completely in doing that. Can I tell you what the benefit of this is that's maybe been unconsciously happening at the same time?
Absolutely.
Because I struggled with this too completely when I first learned all this stuff. And there is a big part in my journey going forward that I'm stepping away from, like the way a lot of the business world does the masculine conceptualization of this in terms of the energy they get stuck in around it. It's just, it's not my energy. It's not where I'm at anymore either. But the fact that I've learned this in years past, I can now talk, I now naturally communicate, and I now naturally think in a manner which, when it comes to aptly communicating what I do to someone else, it makes it really clear really fast, right?
Yes.
So now I think the process, it just comes back. This is a different way of saying the same thing. It's now just trusting that you already have that communication structure in your brain. That you will be able to communicate in clever ways, but now you get to integrate it with the feminine. It's integrating the feminine with the masculine now for you to express it, for you to go with your intuition in flowing what needs to be said.
And that is so helpful, because one of the things that has been, and it's probably the masculine rising, has been challenging me. So then I've got to learn to say that, because I've learned to say so many other things. But when it's come from the heart, when it's come from that inspiration and that real solid knowing, it's just going to pour out anyway. Most grateful.
It will. Trust, like you are so there. Like the languaging that you're using when I see you talking, darling, like you've got it. It's really just, I feel like it's just trusting now for you.
Thank you.
No
Love
problem.
you.
No problem. So yes, I empower you to not do extra work you don't need to do. But there are some of us that, some people were asking just for communication structures and, you know, the right questions to ask to help stimulate their thinking around this. So,
and they're valuable questions, and you know, I know that they have helped me on some level in the past, and I'm not discounting them, but it's just like I need to conserve my energy and put it into what's valuable.
Exactly. Totally. Thank you, darling. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else, do you have any thoughts or any extra thoughts around the practical application of all of this?
What I would like to tell you, Nat, I love this. I love this framework, no doubt about it. The reason is that when I started my career, in a very similar kind of function what I am into. But I didn't have any frameworks that time. There were no frameworks, right? I was just piggybacking on others' frameworks and trying to understand how they relate to me. And I was on a journey as well. And slowly and gradually, my mind started building patterns and building these frameworks. And I did realize over time there is a big benefit to these frameworks. For instance, even today, when I'm asked to prepare something, a lot of times it is like creating a mountain out of a molehill. For lack of a better phrase. So many times I'm told that okay, I'll give you an example from last year, CBA. I joined CBA and I said, I was told you are into strategy, policy, processes, and that's all your experience is. My exec manager, my boss told me, why don't you create for us a policy and process inquiry governance framework? And it didn't get into my head. I said, what exactly does he mean? Why do you want a framework? Why do you want a framework for inquiries, right? Then he explained to me the purpose and stuff like that. It took me a while, and probably I did a similar kind of exercise because I have been doing this for years, right? This is very comprehensive and very impressive, believe me, because this kind of goes beyond the normal realm of public speaking, as I see it. This actually kind of starts from the public speaking, kind of, creates that kind of impetus in you for public speaking and leads it to a different level. It kind of gets into your client engagements, your market, your target market. And that's precisely all of us do. For instance, when I'm creating a lending policy for the market, which includes all of you, right?
Yep.
I need to understand what's my target market. And everything under the sun can't be my target market, right? But
No.
still get to that precise target market, I need to define what's everything under the sun.
Totally.
Right. So
completely.
and at the end of the day, when I do such exercises, I end up creating 10 or 20 pages, and that's what people like. But I don't really present 10 pages or 20 pages, and I don't really finalize 10. I end up doing something like 2 pages, which cut down the whole message completely. And that's why, uh, there was a famous quote by Steve Jobs, and he said, simple can be harder than complex.
Yes.
And it goes on and says that you really have to go an extra mile to crack in things and make it really simple. And when
Yes.
you do that, you can move mountains.
Yes.
That's exactly, I believe, what you get out of these frameworks, that you kind of exert your mind to create, a mountain out of a molehill,
Yes.
and then you zero it down to something, a very simple thought. Like you said, 3 M's, you showed 3 M's.
Yes.
That's a simple framework, right?
Yeah.
Your market, your method, and your message. As simple as that. So
Totally.
easy to remember, so easy to communicate, so easy to resonate. That's it.
Totally. Cool. Thank you. Thank you for
I've got
sharing.
a weak quote that we mantra that I use: with grace, simplicity, and ease. And that is how I want my life to be, and how it needs to be.
Impressive.
Totally. And that is symptomatic of like when for a lot of, because I've been working with wellness practitioners for a lot of the last 10 years, and exactly what you're talking about, Vic, is the challenge for them, because so it depends what type of how you think as well, whether you think in concepts or whether you think in bigger picture or you think in detail and processes. Like for anyone who's talks in processes and hows, like so many practitioners, when they come to me and I'm trying to find out what they do,
Yeah.
they'll talk in so much detail and they'll talk about all the processes and all the things that they do with clients, but I'm trying to work out at the top level, but what's the core, like essential thing that is your area of expertise that relates to a specific group of people. Because exactly like you're saying, if you try and connect with everyone, you connect with no one, because it's very hard to make a message connect with everyone.
Yes.
But that simplicity is sometimes important in the early phases, like you say, when we have so much information. But how do we communicate that in a clear, concise, simple way is absolutely key as well.
And you said it already. You already said it, Now I don't need to do that hard work on everything, because when you did all that hard work for years, creating all this stuff and thinking like it, you probably at that time, you don't need this paper. You just need to be in front of people and talk about it.
Yeah.
Yesterday I was in a presentation. It was kind of a strategy presentation, and I got my first piece, and they said, okay, you just have these 3 slides. And my boss said, you got to talk about whatever policy changes we did during COVID.
Yep.
Over the last whatever quarter.
Yep.
And I realized when I was preparing for it, like a few minutes before the meeting, I realized that there are 20 policy changes.
Yes.
But my mind doesn't process it like that, right? I've learned to process it in 3 ways, or 2 or 3 points. I said, oh, this is about, verifications. This is about, say, policy criteria. And this is about, a third element, call it a, implementation or something like that.
Yeah.
And I did not dwell on those 3 slides in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I simply told the group that these are the 3 things which you need to put in your mind, and everything centers around. It's all on your slides. And when I finished those 5 minutes, and surprisingly, I thought it was very brief and very sketchy in my mind. But 2 of the business leaders, and they told that you should be in more of our meetings probably, because when we were listening through all these changes, it was far more complicated, but it's getting more simple the way you said it. So
That's great.
I just take it as an encouragement for people who have to simplify stuff.
Yes.
And I believe that all of us have got a big duty to
I love it. There's been so much gold in this last session for me.
Wonderful.
Beautiful.
That's talked about, but also the checklist. As much as I've worked through it, you know, various times, it's always a chance to look at it and continue to refine our message.
Yes.
And there's always, you know, going to be something that we haven't considered. I loved in particular, I loved all of it, and I will do it all, but it's particularly the pathway, the framework where that you can, talk to people through what your process is. I loved that.
Yeah.
And I do have a question though. It's,
yes.
I don't know how related it is to this, but when you do get testimonials, what are ways that we can use it? Because I know some people are so natural at using their testimonials, and you know, here I am, it's like, okay, I've got some testimonials now. How do I use it? How do I share it? Where do I do it in a way that feels very organic and
honoring and integral?
Yeah.
So yeah, cool. Okay. So I don't think I need to really explain to, okay, Prasanna is I just want to acknowledge that Prasanna's got to go. She's saying, thank you so much for having me. Darling, did you just want to jump on and say goodbye briefly?
Yeah, just say goodbye.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was really lovely to meet everyone. It was quite an amazing morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here, darling. And I'll send everyone your info again, just in an email, just a summary, just so everyone has it as well.
No problem. And I look forward to staying in touch. Lots of love.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Cool. Okay. So in terms of that question, so I think we're all generally pretty aware of, you know, privacy law and all that side of it, that I don't need to tell anyone. It's meant to seek permission and or that needs to be included somewhere in like your event terms and conditions, or somewhere on your website, or you're letting people know at the start of your events that that's going to be the case, that things will be recorded, or you'll be seeking that information, and then just, you know, making sure that they're definitely on board with that is always important. But the ways that you can do it without necessarily just screaming it out there, getting other people who can speak about you is always one of the greatest things. Like Erin is beautifully jumping on social media, commenting all over a bunch of my stuff right now, which is beautiful. But it's also, I can't capture in words like the benefit of having someone else say that something of mine was good. If you have, and if you encourage like people in your community, Erin has been in communities where that's very much encouraged, that we support each other in that way. Like that's a beautiful organic way that we can get other people to say it for us if they feel inspired to do it, while they feel inspired to do it, helps make it less awkward for us to have to do it. So that's one way. Another way that you can do it is also to just add a link to, you know, with a recording, the ones that I asked you about last time, for example, is it okay if I share that? Now, a way that you could use a little clip like that is you have a little link. Eventbrite's literally just changed so as you can add a video at the bottom of an event now. So I could add the testimonial video at the bottom of that event. So with just a heading saying what past participants have had to say about this event, right? So that's one way you can very organically do it without having to really push it in people's faces as well, is incorporate it in the body of your anything events that you're already marketing. And you can include it again, a link in the Facebook descriptions or the LinkedIn event descriptions, or wherever it is. You can just put it as a section of your description of the event, what past participants had to say about this event, so it's more organically embedded, and people will look for that. I mean, they are looking for that, so they'll find it. Now, having a website's great, but it's not the most essential tool for you to have. to be able to convert people to your stuff. But if you've got it on there as well somewhere, you've got just hit intermingled with the content, not necessarily, you don't have to say, hey, here's what 10 people said about me when they worked with me in the past that was really cool. But just embedded on the side alongside other stuff, just embedded alongside your about page, or embedded alongside or at the bottom of, you know, a free download that's got a link to it in there, or on the bottom of a page that has a free download. So those are some ways that, again, just incorporating it into any pages that you set up already, sales pages or event pages, anywhere you can put it in there organically.
Is there an organic way to add it to your Facebook business page or groups that you're a part of?
One way you could do it in that respect is encourage, and I sometimes will do this. Some of my groups are a bit down on discussion because, you know, my energy's been a little bit down in terms of getting discussion going the last little bit. But one of the things you can do is start a conversation, or have, that's where the theme days came in handy, in that you can put up a particular theme that enables you to then share yourself something to do with that later in the group. And you can get the group involved in collectively being a part of that. One specific example, for example, one of the themes I did in times past in the women's group was doing the shout out for a sister one, right? Again, that enabled other people, if they wanted to. The purpose of it, me doing it, wasn't to get people to talk about me. It was just to encourage sisters supporting sisters in that respect, and getting post sharing within that. But, you know, anytime like themes like that, or anywhere there's in business forums where there's, you can use those opportunities. Again, I mean, there's some degree of leads that come out of big Facebook groups, and it's better if they're coming from your stuff directly, or they're coming from you directly. But, you know, you get exposure in those groups. So I wouldn't say don't use the theme day opportunities. Certainly do use the theme day opportunities in groups where you've got exposure and you get reach. That can be another way to kind of do that. I'm just thinking in terms of your Facebook business page, again, with the story part of it, you know, with the story parts where you can explain, you know, a bit about the business and what your background is. There's all kinds of potential for you to put links in there as well. So again, you could stick that, you could stick the YouTube link that has videos of, you know, client testimonials, or you could just include a couple at the bottom there, again, with a section of, you know, what clients say related to a specific offering, or just in general. You can just put it in there, and again, it's just naturally embedded in there. It's going to be a little more out of context with your personal Facebook personally. Like for me, you'll see with mine, with my personal Facebook page as opposed to my Nat Ferrier page, that I've got a request on there in my about section that says where my business pages are that people can link to. You can use that with links to your advantage at times, or that may not fit as well in that one, but it's another possibility of where you can put them. Any videos that you share as well on YouTube, anywhere where you've got descriptions, where you can put links in descriptions as well. Sometimes it could be handy to do that. Here's a free download. Here's what people say about it. And it might be just a comment. It might be a quote from what somebody said that you got from either SurveyMonkey, or, for example, I could screenshot, if Erina was okay with it, some of the things that she said on Facebook today or on LinkedIn, and I could then like use that text or that wording or a picture of that. I can embed that in various places as well.
Anytime.
Thank you. So yeah, does that give you a few things to go with? It doesn't always have to be as direct as you saying, here's what some people said about working with me in times past. I did do one of those on LinkedIn this week, where I was like, in case you're curious, after I'd already done a bunch of other posts about this upcoming event and just said, here's what some of our past people said, and just did one directly, because every now and then somebody, who's to say it won't get somebody watching it? So yeah, does that give you some?
Yeah, I'll do that. There's a mastermind I'm part of, a local one, and they've asked me to put together, it's my turn to talk. So
Sweet.
I'm putting together a talk. We'll see how that goes. And yeah, but I'll happily put my hand up to share something if you're looking for someone now.
Yeah, cool.
I'll get this going and work through this, and I'll create something.
Yay. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So let's stay in touch around that. I think you've got the call link that we can have a chat when you're ready about that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I can send it to you again.
But yeah. And a reminder, on the other side of our relocation.
Yes.
Back on this. So, but yes, I'm getting one ready now. I'm getting a talk ready, and I loved everything Prasanna had to say. It's obviously, it's great to be able to sort of channel that into the way I work. Obviously, in a very, I know that there are some people that
Yes.
do it in a different way, and I've got to just find a way to connect that side of myself and my experience together with the persona that I want to put out there to people.
Yes.
Which aren't it's not necessary sort of that too earthy. Mine's more, because of my scientific experience, I want to sort of showcase that a little bit more.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but it's beautiful to be able to, once they're in, to be able to foster and nurture some of that. So that's perfect. I loved it.
Cool.
I'll
Awesome.
definitely share some of those links.
Beautiful. Okay. Thank you, darling, for the feedback. And yeah, just keep me posted if you need anything. I just put this up over here so as we've got the actual, let me just, oh, that's the actual paid session one, but it will also take you to my calendar full stop. Yeah, do feel free to reach out anytime that you need. Now, everyone else, any thoughts, let's maybe, love to hear if you still have any questions, anyone else, but also love to maybe sum up now and wrap up now with just hearing what are the takeaways, what are the biggest takeaways, and what are you excited about walking away from today?
I was actually going to have a me day today and be totally free and just sit and contemplate and that sort of thing. And then I got this reminder on my phone that said Nat. And it's like, oh my goodness, we've got that workshop. And I could not have been in a better place for the last 3 hours, 4 hours.
Yay.
It has been a me day. And yeah, it's just been absolutely fantabulous. And
Beautiful.
Thank you for everybody that was here with us, because you contributed.
Indeed. Thank you for life getting to you in a way that made sure that, sounds like you ended up being in the right place at the right time. And yeah, indeed, me ended up being slightly different than how you first thought, but good on you for going with the flow and showing up and finding the thing. And thank you for your beautiful feedback, darling. It's always absolutely a pleasure to have you on here. It's a pleasure to witness you grow, and I love the moments too where you step into you more and I get to step back a little bit more and go for it. Like, that's one of the beautiful things about working with people over time as well, is you get to see that bit and go, that's completely, that's cool. It's beautiful.
I think I am a little bit different from when we first met, aren't I?
Aren't we both? Maybe. You definitely are. You definitely are, darling.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What about you, Vic?
Yep.
Thoughts?
I mean, I loved this whole time. I've never had a more fantastic time, especially on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Beautiful.
Yeah, weekdays generally, again, I would I love working, but it's not as interesting as this one, no doubt about it. Especially because of the freedom of expression you have, and you don't have to think who's on the other line.
Yeah.
You can be yourself, and secondly, because of the diversity of people, and we are so diverse in our topics more than anything else,
Yes.
which kind of opens up the pathways of your mind. I think
Yeah.
that's a big one
Yes.
for me. Yes, I mean, I would want to get on these sessions as much as possible.
Yay. Beautiful. I'm glad it's been magical for you today. Thank you for your feedback, and thank you for being here and being a part of it. It's great to have you here.
Thanks.
Ileana, any final thoughts?
Yeah, there's always so much gold that comes out of these sessions that you host and things that you share with us. So I always get a lot out of them.
Yay.
But today, my take homes, I think, are, just marrying some of the things that have obviously, some of the things that Prasanna had spoken about that did spark things that I'd already done in the past. It wasn't necessarily anything new. I loved the way she described it, just bringing two things, some of the ways that I could potentially refill my cup.
Yes.
More frequently so that I can bring something, and that can be in that kind of, way.
Yeah.
And then how I would communicate some of the things that I'd obviously already done and thought, and that were very well aligned with what she was saying, and how to communicate some of that across to my starting clients, current clients, potentially other people.
Yep.
And there's one word that that's really resonated with me, and I'm going to put it into my talk. It's that word of like biodynamic and what that kind of means.
Yes.
That's sort of come into my mind. Again, I always thought of it as your biodynamic womb. And I'm going to use it in my general women's wellbeing talk when I talk to the mastermind, but just that being like when you're drawing your nutrients up from, say, dirt versus, this amazing biodynamic, soil that is just brimming with like life and energy and nutrients, versus, dirt and what's missing from that, and what you're then going to create in your body and that healthiness in every way.
Yes.
And so, I loved it. And, putting your roots in the ground and
beautiful. Oh, can we all still hear? Okay. Has it gone frozen for everyone? No? Are we good? We good? Can we hear?
Yeah, can hear
you. Kitty's back! Your kitty. Your kitty. All right. Okay. That's the universe giving us a signal that it's pack up time.
Yeah.
I think so. That's all of us. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here today. Thank you for your gorgeous feedback and participation. I'm glad you got loads out of it. Do feel free to connect over in the Shine When You Speak community if it's relevant. Feel free to connect with each other over there if that's what you feel to do as well, if that feels like you would get benefit out of that. And just calling back, I'm just let's just take a breath at the end of this. Just take a few deep breaths, and again just allow to breathe in just the integration of everything that we've received today and the beautiful energy, the beautiful gifts. And just allow that to sit in us with gratitude. What a beautiful day today has been. Thank you all for being here. And I'll send you an email with the links again, and yeah, stay in touch if there's anything else that you need. Such a pleasure to have you in my world. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Nat.
Thank you,
Nat.
Nat.
Nice to meet you, everybody.
Thank you.
Lots of love all. We'll chat soon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.